Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Crucible. This week we're going to be talking to Kat the Humanist again. Uh, Sorry to everyone who was tuning in last week with the technical issues, but we're using a new system now, so we think that we've got it sorted. So we're looking very much forward to a chat with Kat. We're going to first of all start covering the topics that we were looking at last week, so we can get Kat's opinion on all of that, since she is a school teacher. And then we're going to be talking to Joshua. We're going to get Joshua in for the second half of the show. And so it'll be Joshua and Kat for the second half. Do we know what the topic was for that? I seem to have had a mind blank there, Skids.
Well, I think we're still going to continue the same topic, but we're just going to broaden the scope from just the education to kind of more of a general impact of the COVID and what we think we can do to help.
Well, that sounds absolutely brilliant. So we'll get that going. So we have in the chat with us today, we have Trent Steer, obviously Skids the Clown there, co-hosting for today. We have the one good reason. Welcome to the stream. It's the first time I think I've seen you here, so thank you very much for joining in. We obviously have Kat the Humanist and Joshua as well. I think that's all I'm seeing right now. I'm not sure if other people can see others.
We'll get some more in a little bit.
Okay then. Well, let's get into it, shall we? So today we've obviously got Kat the Humanist as the guest. Welcome to the stream, Kat. Can we hear you this week?
Yes, I hope so.
Yay!
Yes.
Yeah, that was the pits last time. I'm very sorry that my phone was not liking StreamYard.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
We made do with what we had, but it's very good to hear your voice this time.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Well, so what was... I think we decided on... We're going to be playing some videos, screen sharing again. So is there anything that you want to talk about from last week's videos before we get into that?
Not necessarily. I guess last week's had to do mostly with kind of a generalized way of how schools have been affected by COVID. And
exactly.
Covered some things that people had not thought about, like, and I of course didn't get to bring a lot of those things up, but we could certainly do that when Josh comes in afterwards too. But I chose some videos this time that were all from just this past week and about how about COVID-19 vaccines, and also again about COVID-19 and how it's affecting the schools. And in particular, I found one that had to do with special ed students.
Yes, definitely. I watched that one before we came on the show tonight, and it's a very good video that I can't wait for everybody to see. I would say before we dig in too much, Kat, would you mind telling everybody a little bit about yourself and kind of your background in education?
Sure. Yeah, I was an art teacher for 30 years, and then I decided to move and do an early retirement because I'm getting up there and just relax a little bit more, and moved into an area that I really enjoy and am now substitute teaching.
Okay.
And it's actually rather fun. I've been enjoying it quite a bit.
Excellent.
So with substitute teaching, I'm guessing that you do quite a lot of different subjects, not just the art, which is, I believe, was your training.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes, I do all subjects, and I'm really enjoying it. All sorts of ages, K through 12.
Okay.
What would you say is the hardest subject that you've had to, fill in for?
Chemistry.
Ooh, a tough one.
Yeah, absolutely a tough one.
Yeah, especially when you pop in and you're not sure what exactly you're going to be teaching until you get there. So. that can, you know.
I assume they don't just let you show a video all day in class when
No.
you get to do that. You actually have to teach.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you don't want to take any subjects that you feel like you're not going to be able to teach for sure. But
Hmm.
um, I haven't been having any problems at all, and I'm kind of a science enthusiast. And well, that's kind of an understatement. I am a science enthusiast in the first place too, so I love teaching science courses.
Okay.
So what would be the, in your opinion, what is like the easiest age group to teach, and what would be the hardest age group that you've had to teach?
Okay, I will let you know that varies from teacher to teacher.
Mhm.
So a different teacher will tell you something completely different. I don't know if any are. I don't see any harder than any others. I can say that what I enjoy the most are the really young kids, and it's just their personalities and how they view life and how
Mhm.
excited they are about learning. I love that. You know, and they're so open and they don't have all these preformed biases and things like that, and they're just wonderful to work with.
Plus, I'm sure it doesn't hurt that they're still cute, so
They're
that goes a long
they're
way.
very cute. Yes, they are super cute, and you never
So,
know what they'll say
yeah,
ever.
exactly. No filter; it just comes out. So,
Yep.
did you like growing up? Did you know that you wanted to go into education and teach, or was it more of something like just something you fell into?
Well, actually, I really didn't have any thoughts about that at all. I was more art and nature oriented,
Mm-hmm.
so I figured I would probably either and music oriented. So I figured I
Oh,
would
okay.
either be a musician or go into something to do with visual arts or something like forestry or forest ranger or something like that. It's kind of where I was headed. And
Okay.
then I've always enjoyed working with people all the time. And I guess after I got into the art field for a while when I was at the university and I was checking out all the different choices there would be, that just seemed the most enjoyable to me because I like working with people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just a fine artist by yourself, that's a pretty isolated job. So that's not really me.
So, do you have like any, concerns or complaints about, how the school systems have been run since you've been, you've been substitute teaching for a while now, but when you were actually full-time teacher, were you happy with the way the schools were being run back then? Or, was there always room for improvement, something that you would like to have seen done?
Oh, I think there's always room for improvement. And education's always changed over the years. And I think things should always change trying to get better. But sometimes not necessarily. Sometimes, the politics get a little bit too involved in it and
Mm-hmm.
don't really help and can make matters worse at times. And there's other things that are good. And I think usually it's everybody has very good intentions,
Yeah.
you know, but no, it's changed dramatically over the years. But I do see some really, really good changes in education. And I think they were really starting off on the right foot for things that were more I guess, involved in critical thinking skills, but then COVID came along and kind of messed up the whole way that would have went because it had to do more with cooperative learning and working close together and using
Mm-hmm.
implements together and things like that. So we just have to adjust.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that kind of goes into what we were talking about last week, which, unfortunately, we were trying to relay some of your messages from the chat. Um, what would you say is the number one impact, number one negative thing that is facing the school systems right now based on COVID?
We would say how many kids are failing. And I'm not sure how much it's getting better in some areas and other areas. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of it has to do with distance schooling.
So is that
Mm.
completely related to COVID, or was an issue with the education system before COVID came along?
No, it's completely related to COVID and online learning. You know, you have problems with kids getting behind, kids not having access to the internet or computer, Wi-Fi issues, or something will happen where class is supposed to
Hmm.
start and then they have issues with the computer. Um, Kids not showing up for online classes at all. And I mean, kids missing more than 20 days or more of school in a row. So the truancy went way up. And then they have kids that leave during class, and then a lot of kids that just won't do their homework. So,
So,
Do
see,
you
in your opinion, do you think that the government could have done things differently? Could have prepared for this a little bit better than what they have done?
exactly what I was going to ask?
Sorry, Skids.
yeah,
Oh, no, no, that's perfect. Great minds think alike.
well, yes, actually, because there was no plan in for it. And I think that was one of the things in my state that they found we were woefully hurting in was access to the internet. There's a lot of
Mhm.
areas, and it's not just this area of the country, but it's other areas too, where you get out in the remote areas and kids don't have access. And so you can send them home with a computer, but that doesn't mean
Mhm.
there's anything to connect it with. I do know some school districts actually took buses out to the country and set up connections on buses for kids.
Mhm.
So, I mean, they were doing a lot of creative thinking, and I'm actually impressed with how fast some things got started because some teachers were given a weekend to learn how to do online classes, and that was it. And boom, they're online with their kids.
Mhm.
They'd never done it before.
So this was sort of a learning curve for teachers as much as it was for students then.
Oh, absolutely. And using programs they'd never used before, it
Mhm.
was big. And the same with kids, too. They were in the
Yeah,
same boat.
Do you
yeah.
think that it
I
would?
noticed.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Skids.
I was just going to finish up on that note. I've got a daughter who's in now in high school. When the quarantine started, she was just finishing up junior high and middle school, and basically they were not prepared. So she came home. Um, just basically, we didn't know what was going to happen. They gave them a week off when kind of the quarantine hit here in the States. And we didn't know what was supposed to happen. We, at that time, of course, nobody assumed we were going to be in quarantine for a full year or anything like that. So we didn't know what was going to take place, how it was going to happen. And I felt the worst part was that there was no way to track her progress after that. There was no system that I could see if anybody was,
Mm.
turning in their homework or what their current grades were or what class or what
Oh, wow.
homework was due at what time and stuff like that. It literally felt like a lot of schools in my area, talking to other parents who had similar situations, were literally just, playing it by ear, which I understand. This was not a situation that a lot of people thought they would be in, but there were warning signs that something could like this could happen, and even to that, I don't understand why there was didn't seem like there was a effort to be prepared in case anything would have happened that would have taken the kids out of a school.
Yeah, I kind of feel like our government let us down on that totally. And the same with the internet access. I mean, it is not like they didn't know this was a problem
Hmm.
in the first place. And so, in that regard, they were already letting those kids down for learning capabilities before this even happened.
Yeah, exactly. I know in my area, internet is pretty spotty. You get out of the we have some major cities in my area, but once you get out of the city limits, I mean,
Hmm.
there's no access to internet, in even cell phone reception. If you're using like a cell phone for a hotspot,
Hmm.
that can get spotty pretty quick.
Well, I think I've even told you the bars on my phone to show how much I'm picking up changes from depending on whether I'm in my living room or in my garage.
Hmm.
And who I had for my services before, I used to have to walk across the road in order to get service on my phone.
Yeah,
So it's not real great out here.
exactly, exactly. You had a question you were going to ask, Katie?
Yeah, so I was going to follow on and said and ask, um, is there any like positives that have come out of this? And I know obviously there's a lot of negatives
Hmm.
because of the rush to actually get this online learning and everything in place. But is there any positives out of this online learning system that you would draw on?
Well, I, I would say it showed where the weaknesses were, and it's forcing the governments to, come to terms with it and have to do something about it. They got forced into it somewhat.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I mean, pressure's going to stay there. People got to have internet access. You know, Other areas, I don't really know. I can't think of any, honestly. I'm sure there might be some out there somewhat, but
I,
I don't know of
I
them.
I can think of a positive, but there's definitely a caveat to it, because it did force some parents to get more involved in their child's education simply because of the situation.
Hmm.
Um, but based on some of the videos that we watched last week and some of my experience with parents that I know, it's not always a positive. Some parents honestly don't value the education. They see school system as nothing more than a glorified daycare.
Hmm.
Um, like we discussed last week, especially here in the United States, a lot of Americans don't value education at all. Um, they don't they don't have a healthy respect for the learning process of it. They and it comes down to certain beliefs and stuff like that, where education is not the most important thing. You graduate when you graduate, and they want you to get no offense to anybody, but just a basic trades job and call it good. Um, where they don't value what the benefit of actually, like you said, it's the education is not just the learning of what you learn in school. It's building those critical thinking skills. That's the real benefit of it. Being able to demonstrate that you can put the work in. So homework isn't just, again, about learning facts that you're never going to use again. It's about being given an assignment, finding a solution to getting that assignment completed, and turning it in. And those build the basic skills that it takes to be a member of the workforce. I think some parents get to see that education process in the first hand since they were in school, and they may develop a respect for it since they are at home with their kids and they understand what their kids are going through. Um, but again, I think some parents literally just don't care.
Very sad because they're seriously limiting their children's futures and what they'll be able to do.
Yeah.
And I don't
But,
think it's fair.
yeah. But, Katie tells the story of um, her upbringing, within the Jehovah's Witnesses and being homeschooled. And that's kind of an example right there of where education is more a tool for indoctrination.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't get really excited about private schools. I like public schools better. I think you get a more rounded education, and I think it just helps people with learning how to deal with the real world once they get out of school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the in within public school system, and obviously within private school system with religious schools and things like that, obviously is going to be the case. But in the public school system, is there any pushback from religious parents at all to some of the science, or and some of the religious the secular religious teaching?
There always is. I mean, it's constant, and then and there's different ways about it. Like if you have Jehovah Witness students, they have to sit out on a lot of activities, or else you have to change them. Um, and there's some people that want to push um, religious holidays on the
Mhm.
classes, not thinking about including everybody as a whole. It, I mean, there's a lot.
Do you think that has increased in being an issue more in the last 10, 15 years than say maybe 20 years ago?
I think we have way more helicopter parents. I
Okay.
can say that. And I don't know. There's a lot of really great parents out there too. I don't want people to get the idea that there aren't, because there are. There's a lot of very dedicated parents to education and trying to help the schools out too. But I don't know. It's been a strange few past years, so
Mhm.
I'm
I
hoping that's going to change.
I've just noticed that it seems that like when I was in school, which was a long, long, long time ago, um, that it never really seemed to be much of a thing that you thought of at the time. If they taught something that the church didn't necessarily agree with, you never really heard anything from any parents. I think some parents are becoming more vocal about making sure that their kids are not exposed to education that does not agree with their religion. um, they're more willing, like you said, they're helicopter parents, so they're at least more willing to speak up about it and stuff like that. And I didn't know if that was just kind of a more, since we've seen a kind of an increase of the evangelical movement here, especially in the United States, if it seemed like it was more of a problem now than it was.
I don't know. That's kind of a small percentage of the population where I live. So I wouldn't notice it as much as in other areas of the country. But I do think that Facebook and social networks and things like that have not had the best influence on education, and I think it's
Yeah.
just really had large effects on how people treat each other,
Oh, I totally agree with that.
and that I've seen. And there's
Absolutely.
yeah, and I've seen other issues too. I mean, just in the past 4 years about um, more bullying and more racial epithets and things like that going on in school that weren't quite as much before. So
Mhm.
that's been very disappointing.
Yeah. And I'm sure, I mean, with the internet and social media and stuff like that, bullying is now a lot more than it was like when I was in school, where it was just, somebody might pick on you or call you a name when you were in class. Now you can go home and the bullying doesn't necessarily stop because social media, people can post and stuff like that. So there's no going home and being away from it sometimes. That
Right.
can be even more distressing.
Yes. It's just a whole new thing. I mean, what kids have to deal with now is a lot. It's not like it used to be. And
Yeah.
part of that social media.
Yeah.
Did we want to move into some of these videos that you had prepared?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so if you
Absolutely.
got one lined up, Skids, to share screen, and I'll...
Let's go ahead and start with the special needs, that the special education one, and we'll go from there. Give me one moment to cue this up. All right. Oh, sorry, I forgot to share audio. My bad. Give me just one second to try that again. Share screen. There we go. Share audio. Sorry, everyone. Take two.
Is having on special needs students in the U.S. The CDC says in-person learning is possible with the right safety precautions, and many parents are pushing to get their kids back into the classroom. But families of students with disabilities say they are facing a unique uphill battle, and their kids are being left behind. When her St. Louis suburb first closed schools, Ashley Young saw it as an opportunity.
You know, you have these kind of grandiose ideas of this homeschool scenario that you're going to do.
But Ashley soon noticed her 6-year-old son, Miles, was slipping.
Can you say hi really quick? Hi. The kids would touch it and they say, if you don't use it, you lose it. We're like, great, okay, he knows all his colors. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, he doesn't remember his colors anymore.
She says outside the classroom, Miles doesn't get the repetition he needs. Some lessons from his Individualized Education Program, or IEP, he can't receive at all. Even classes that otherwise work well on Zoom don't work well for Miles.
It was just too much to hear multiple people talking at a time, or sometimes just the way that the volume comes across on a Zoom.
During a recent Zoom class, things start out fine. Then Miles has trouble with the iPad. When Ashley comes to help, he's not happy.
Yeah.
But once Ashley leaves, Miles makes a break for it.
Not Zoom. Stop. No.
And as soon as Ashley turns her back again, Miles is out. This is 6 minutes into class.
Were there moments that stuck out to you where you thought this just isn't working?
A kind of a turning point for me was I didn't necessarily like the mom that I was becoming, and it was just really overwhelming for both of us.
So Ashley resorted to hiring a private specialist to work with Miles in person, part-time.
I don't feel like he was getting, I don't want to say any education, but it's true. I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't feel like he learns anything from Zooms online.
It's a sentiment we're hearing from special needs families all across the country, like the Azeltine family of Charlotte, North Carolina. 6-year-old Connor is partially deaf and too young to read closed captions on Zoom.
He relies pretty much on myself or my husband sitting with him. Both my husband and I work, and no one's coming to us and saying, hey, we're going to pay your bills.
Courtney says to learn through a screen, Connor must first learn to read, a catch-22 since he's learning that virtually.
See the other kids his age reading paragraphs, reading sentences, or they could at least sound out words. And he can't do any of that. And it's heartbreaking.
She says the hardest part is that Connor is now old enough to realize he's falling behind.
The teacher put the answers up on the screen for them to all check themselves, and he didn't get a single one right. And he looked at me and put his head on my shoulder and started to cry.
Over in Pueblo West, Colorado, Kevin Blunt says his son Makai is supposed to receive regular speech therapy to help with his nonverbal autism. But since it can't be done via Zoom, Makai hasn't had speech therapy in almost a year.
We've even asked, are we able to sign a waiver and get specialists like speech therapy to come to the house? No, we can't do any of that at this time.
The family says the school also refused to loan them the sensory items normally used to help Makai learn.
Basically, putting Makai in front of a screen, it's useless. It really is.
You know, we've heard for years, no child left behind, no child left behind, but we really feel like the kids with an IEP or special needs are specifically being left behind.
Jennifer Manning, director of special education for the neighborhood charter schools in New York City, says parents are facing an impossible task.
We always say that just because you have a student with special needs as your child does not make you an expert on how to teach a kid with special needs.
At the end of the month, she hopes to welcome her special needs students back to the classroom, where they can attend virtual classes with the added help of in-person professionals. But she says that's not as easy as it sounds.
We have a building in which we are, because of code, we can't open our windows. And so all of these precautions that are told to be put in place in order to make a building more safe are really, really complicated.
In the meantime, she says her school is working to make online learning as fruitful as possible.
If I'm a visual learner, I'm always going to have that visual piece to go back to. If I'm an audio learner, I'm always going to have something to click on so something can be read aloud to me. We've sent home weighted vests, and we've sent home special seats and special sensory tools that we would have in the building so that kids and families have access to those tools at home. We know that this is not our ideal situation, but what can we do to make it better?
It's the kind of support the Blunts and the Azel teens say they're not receiving from their respective schools, but they intend to keep fighting.
I'll scream and I'll fight and I'll yell and I'll do whatever I have to do for someone to listen, because this is, it's critical. It truly is critical.
Now, since we did those interviews, Mekhi Blunt is back in school for now. His school says they will monitor COVID-19 cases day by day. As for virtual learning for special needs students, the school says, quote, specialists and therapists continued to meet with those students and their parents virtually and provided as close to the same services possible as required on the student IEP plans. Now, an administrator for Connor Azeltine School tells us we have followed appropriate procedures and made solid educational decisions in the midst of the most disruptive event I have experienced as an educator. We have worked and will continue to work in good faith with the Azeltines to make appropriate educational decisions for Connor. And as for Miles Young, Ashley says he has been welcome back in school for a while now, but because he has a heart condition, his doctors have deemed him too high risk. So both he and his sister Lucia will have to stay home for the foreseeable future.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos,
Yeah, so what is everyone's thoughts on that then? Kat, do you have any thoughts on what we just watched there?
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm sure they're having great difficulties with their special needs students. The district that I'm in decided to have special needs come to school from the beginning of the year. And so they've been in there all the time unless their parents requested them to be online, or of course in case someone, got COVID in their family or something like that, where they have to be out of school for a while. But that's worked out really well. And I can't even imagine the place those parents are in that didn't have that as a choice. But you do have the issues with windows not opening in schools and things like that. And there's only so much you can do. Some of the kids can't wear masks. Some of them can wear face shields. Some can't wear face shields even, and so there's, some health issues there. When you're working with special needs students, you can't keep that 6-foot distance. So you run into that, but I think overall, actually, it's been better for them to be in school.
Yeah, there's definitely a benefit to, especially with the special needs, to have, on-site learning, because generally you have an educator and then a para that's specifically trained to working with special needs kids. A lot of parents even, because they are a parent of a special needs child, doesn't mean they know how to educate a special needs child. And I just, from that video, it just sounds like this is an exact case of kids that are, it's already a bad situation, but these are kids that are falling through the cracks. And it's especially challenging on them, even more so than than a lot of kids. And we know based off of last week's conversation that even, just your average student is struggling in this situation.
So
Yeah, and it.
I was
Oh,
going to
go
ask,
ahead.
in the times that that kids have been off school, has there been some kids in school, or has all kids been off school?
It's been a little bit of everything, and then it depends from district to district and state to state here. And there can be huge differences. Like, there's some schools that have had online learning this whole time.
Yeah.
There's some schools that have hybrid learning situations. And in the case that the district and the state that I'm in, they have different models set up for different scenarios. And in our district, they decided to have in-school learning for the elementary kids, except for the families that opted to go on online, they could go on online. So you still had a little bit of that. And then it would depend upon how the numbers went up. Like, if the cases there in the district go up above 3% for COVID, then they change. So it's all based on numbers. But we just right now had previously had all online for high school, and now they just went through a week of hybrid. And then starting on Monday, they're going to go to all in school because the numbers are down here for COVID.
Yeah, for my school district, we started out with everybody's on-site learning, unless you opted out. And we went, I would say, a month and a half before our numbers hit that 3% number, and they made a change. And so what they did is they basically reduced the population of the school in half so that they could spread out desks and keep the population down at school, make it easier to social distance and stuff like that. And then they just literally, it was random who was working at school and who was learning from home. My daughter actually wound up, and not our decision, we would have rather have her on site. She's been at home since late October. And right now we've had no indication on whether they're going to go back this school year to on-site. They don't want to do the hybrid learning where it's like 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out, or anything like that, because then they feel that kids who have been in quarantine were then put back in a situation where they are exposed, and they felt it was easier to control if they had a certain body that was remote and a certain body that was on-site.
Yeah, they're all different.
Exactly.
But they usually base it on the numbers of COVID in the population. And then, of course, things happen if a teacher gets COVID or a student in the classroom gets COVID and so forth. That throws things off.
I don't live
and then we have a sub shortage too.
Yeah, and I've heard that in my area. Where I live, it's not the most mask-friendly place in the world. So it does not help on keeping those numbers down when people in my area are very resistant to wearing masks and social gatherings.
I would just, but of course, I'm going to have a biased opinion totally on this, but I would just think if people, huge amounts of the population have kids in school or that are supposed to be kids in school. You would think they would be sick of the situation and trying their very best to get us out of it.
Yeah, exactly. You would think that's enough motivation just to get them to do it. I know my work, a little off subject, the people who are essential personnel, just to maintain their ability to work at my company, they're very strict on that. So people who want this to end, but still, are trying to do their best. I mean, they literally quarantine to the best. So they go to work. When they're at work, they wear their mask. And then when they are done with work, they go straight home. No eating out, no haircuts, nothing like that. Just trying to get the situation back to normal. And it's sad when you see somebody who puts that much effort into maintaining their ability to work with a company, trying to get things back to normal, when you have people who just have a clear disregard for wearing masks and social distancing and all that. And I never expected that almost a year later we'd still be in this situation.
I know, I feel the same way. I mean, I've been doing all the isolating I can. I did have to go in and get my driver's license, though, and my license tabs. I mean, you have no choice over that matter. But, I'm not out running around. I don't go around maskless. And I feel even more responsible for it because I sub in different buildings, which means I could possibly get COVID and go from room to room, not realizing I'm exposing people when I don't have symptoms.
Exactly. So
I'd just like to shout out, we have the One Good Reason back in the chat again. Welcome once again. And we also have Duncan in the chat as well. He's watching what he can before he has to scoot. So thank you very much for joining
Mike
in,
and
Duncan.
How's it going, everyone?
Well, I'm hoping this will get better now that we're getting vaccines. I just read in our local paper that Wednesday our nursing home patients where I live are going to be getting their second shots. And we got enough COVID vaccines for half of our school teacher population. So hopefully we'll get enough for the other half. So, I mean, we're getting there.
And that brings up a good point about, vaccines. Where are teachers and school staff on the priority when it comes to getting the vaccines? We see that vaccines are becoming available to the school staff pretty readily.
I think I think that kind of depends state to state too, where they all have certain plans, like perhaps, and it's not the same in every state, but some it was immediately the people in retirement homes, and other ones that it was immediately like nurses and doctors and policemen and emergency people. So it's kind of varied. Here it was, we're like after all those people, then we were in line.
Yeah, so a lot of these
issues didn't have enough.
We do have a video on this if we want to watch this anytime.
Yeah, we'll get that. We'll get that on in a sec. I was wanting to say that it sounds like to me like a lot of these issues in America, specifically, seem to be different from state to state. In your opinion, do you think that the federal government could have taken a much better lead in putting together a plan on how to deal with a lot of these issues?
In my opinion, I think so. But at the same time, I know that, depending on the individual state's political leaning, would have determined whether there would have been pushback to a federal guideline. I'm in a very, very conservative state. In fact, we were one of the states that were constantly making news about, very, very lax restrictions during the entire pandemic. So I would have, even if there would have been some kind of federal guideline that was put into place, I would have imagined my state would have been slow moving into actually enforcing it.
But don't you think that's because you didn't have a decent role model for encouraging people to do that?
That is a very good point. But at the same time, and I'm not going to take too much of a political stance. Right now, it seems that our newly elected president is taking a positive move towards maintaining and controlling the virus. And most people around me, just because he is not of their political party, are pretty much just dismissing anything he says, and just will not listen because simply the difference between the lines of being a Republican and being a Democrat. Whether the information is solid or not, they're basing their opinion on tribal politics versus common sense.
And that's really sad
Yeah.
because it shouldn't be political in the slightest.
Absolutely.
Yeah, see
It's not a
that-
political subject.
You know, that's quite interesting because, like, you know, it's very different to the way that we've dealt with it over in the UK. You know, so there seems to be like quite a lot of pushback over in America. But over in the UK, we don't tend to get into those, like, oh, well, I don't sit with this political position, so I'm not going to listen to this person who's now in power. You know, like a lot of us who voted to stay in Europe, although we're not happy about leaving Europe and having a conservative government, we still do our very best to to uphold the the value of democracy.
Yeah.
It seems like in America that isn't happening the same way.
No, and this does go both ways. Regardless of how I personally felt about our former president, I would never say that I wanted to see him fail or that nothing could be done productive. I still respect the position of a president and everything like that, regardless of who sits in that office and what political party they belong to. And there were people on the Democratic side that absolutely were the exact same way of well, he's not part of my party, so I'm going to oppose anything and everything that he does. So yeah, that whole tribalism part of politics is a big problem here in the States. And again, tying it back to our subject, stuff like that absolutely has an effect on when it comes to regulations on how to deal with a national crisis, simply because if a president does not belong to your political party, that can honestly affect how people perceive that advice or recommendation. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people, I should say.
Yeah, that's really sad because you end up shooting yourself in the foot when you have that kind of an attitude.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Sorry. Well, we're wanting to continue on with the next video, and also
Yeah,
we'll need to get Josh in here shortly as well.
Sounds good. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. I got on the wrong screen. I'm going to share one that specifically talks about the vaccinations. And I clicked share audio this time. I'm proud of myself.
2 secs. I'm
Sure.
a little bit behind. There we go. Yeah, there
So
we
let me know
go.
when.
I'm ready. I'll just need to
Awesome.
get into there. And
For schools to reopen next
There we
month
go.
in a hybrid setting, many teachers across the state say they want to be vaccinated against COVID before that happens. Well, it's not just them. There's support staff, janitors, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and that is a very long list. Here's News 13's Gabrielle Burkhart.
Statewide, the Public Education Department says there are roughly 50,000 school staff across New Mexico and potentially thousands more ahead of them in line for the vaccine.
The vaccines have been certainly one of the hottest, if not the most important topic on the minds of many of our educators.
On the heels of Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's announcement this week that
every school district in the state will be able to welcome all ages of students safely back to the classroom on February 8th.
schools, parents, and educators are learning it's easier said than done. Aside from logistics, some districts are working to put in place, like rehiring bus drivers and making sure all staff is ready. Many teachers have been vocal about wanting access to the COVID-19 vaccine before returning to the classroom. Some may fall into the current vaccine category if they're 75 and older or have health conditions that put them at risk for COVID complications. But it's not just teachers who want to be prioritized.
And I will continue to advocate strongly that our educators, and it's not just the teachers, we have custodians, we have counselors and principals that are in the schools as well, EAs, they all need the vaccine.
The Public Education Department says there are more than 17,000 teachers across the state and nearly 50,000 total school staff. Right now, the state is administering roughly 8,000 to 9,000 vaccine doses per day, with hundreds of thousands of people in line.
I do think that we need to do a better job of vaccinating these staff members that are working with students and especially fragile populations of students. It's a tricky issue. We need more vaccine and we need it yesterday.
APS Interim Superintendent Scott Elder told the Jackie, Tony, and Donnie radio show today that he believes school-based personnel should be considered frontline workers when it comes to the COVID vaccine. He also acknowledged the state's limited vaccine supply and, quote, tremendous demand. Back to you.
Okay, thanks, Gabby. Now, Superintendent Elder and also other superintendents have also said, though, they don't think it's realistic to be able to hold off on reopening schools until every school staff is vaccinated. Elder also said today, unless a teacher has a qualified medical condition that prevents them from returning to teaching in person, they will have to return under that hybrid plan.
So yeah, that if they were saying February 8th, that's 4 days from here. Like I said, in my state, I don't see or I've not heard much news about that being the case. So yeah, that's going to depend on where you are at in the country.
Yeah, it seems to be like quite a large order for, especially a country the size of America to live up to. It seems like a false promise in quite a lot of the senses there.
And I absolutely wish them luck, and it'd be nice to see getting the vaccines out to all the teachers. But they bring up an interesting point of it's not just the teachers. Then you got to do all the custodial staff and all the support for just running the school, not just the teachers. Anybody in that building is going to be a potential spreading point if we don't get everybody vaccinated.
Right. And I do feel too that I've just been really disappointed when I've seen teachers that are only wearing face shields and are not wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why that's okay.
I can exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I realize it's hard to teach through a 95 mask, but I do it. I know it's not fun, but I have one on all day and I do it. There's certain things in the school that don't make it particularly safe for people that are of the vulnerable population to be in there.
And especially when you're dealing with children as well. I mean, Duncan is making a good point there, is that when it comes to these sort of viruses, children are considered to be super spreaders. It is a lot easier when you're dealing with children for the virus to spread. So you would think that it would be more paramount within the education system to be keeping up with the rules and the regulations of wearing a mask and and if you're wearing a face shield, wear a mask as well. And the thing, the bit in that video that I didn't get is when they were saying about the plan to get all the kids back to school and then getting the kids back on the buses again. I don't see how packing a load of children into a bus is going to work in the middle of a pandemic.
And we never really touched on that before because we talked about, the process of getting kids to learn online. Yeah, I mean, one thing I could tell you is in my area, we do not have enough school buses, enough drivers, just to handle the number of kids in our school. We don't have the parking lots for that many buses if they have to start spreading kids up to one per seat or one every other seat. We don't have a road system. Our schools are packed on top of each other on one single road, and it takes 30 minutes to get in and out of a school to pick up your kid. If you start having to triple the amount of buses that are coming in and out of that school, it's going to slow things down. You're never going to start school on time. So that's one of the concerns is you don't have even a busing system in place to take care of this.
Right. I agree. It's I mean, there's so much that people don't think about as far as how complicated it is. It's hugely complicated.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same with the classrooms. The classrooms don't suddenly expand 3 times their size.
Right.
There's still everybody's too close together in those classrooms.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're talking about getting the kids back into school. I'm wondering if because it's coming back into the spring and summer season, whether they're thinking about if part of the plan is outdoor schooling at all, or are they just trying to pack children back into a classroom again?
I mean, that's a great idea. I wish it was something they could do. I just know that, again, this might be a state here in the United States problem is that there's, a very big concern about security and stuff like that. Once you have a whole bunch of students outside, whether it's a unnecessary fear or not, I can imagine a lot of people not being comfortable with the fact that their kids are out in the open where, somebody with a gun could easily get it to the kids. Now, again, this is kind of a U.S. problem.
Yeah, we don't tend to have that issue over here, and every school over here always has quite a lot of outdoor, field space, and usually have a playground, maybe a couple of playgrounds, and some school fields as well for sports days and things like that.
We are the same way in my area. I can absolutely say that our schools in the more urban areas of my state, that would not be an option. There literally is not much field space to put a lot of students in. So kids are packed in, like you said, like sardines as is. So it would certainly be a nice thing to, at least get them some open air, which definitely is good for helping the spread of the pandemic and reducing the population inside the building.
Yeah. I was thinking, are we wanting to go to a break so we can get Josh in on the conversation?
I think now's a good time for that.
Because we're coming up to an hour now, so yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, we'll go to a break. So we'll be going to a break now into a short intermission. I'll play some music, hopefully in the background for everyone to listen to, while we get things up and get our next guest in. So for anyone who is only watching the first half, thank you very much for watching. It's been great having you here, and I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. And please tune back in next week for it's 8:30 usually the stream. I know we started a bit late tonight, but it's usually on Thursdays at 8:30 Eastern time. For those of you who are going to wait around, we will be back in 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll figure it out later.
Right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the stream. Hope you enjoyed the music there in the intermission. We've got everything set up now, so we've got Josh joining us. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you, thank you. Nice to be here.
So let's, without any further ado, let's get back into the conversation and get the second half of this show rolled off.
All right.
Were we wanting to play another video to get back into the conversation, or was there any other points that we wanted to make on that last video?
I've got one more video that does talk about vaccines, so maybe we could watch that real quick.
Sounds
because
good.
I think it's going to hit on some of the same points.
Yep.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, so join that in when you're ready, and I'll get us moved over to the screen share.
Okay, should be pulled up.
Yep, that's working.
And tonight
Cool.
we've learned which schools in Northeast Ohio will be first on the list to get vaccinated so teachers and students can get back to class. Lena Lai explains.
These children are obviously our future.
Governor DeWine is moving forward with his goal of getting kids back in school by March 1st, announcing the first round of schools where teachers and staff can get COVID vaccines next week. Schools in 11 Ohio counties, with Cincinnati Public Schools going first on Thursday. In Northeast Ohio, schools in Summit and Medina counties made the list.
Teachers in general are very excited to be able to be on the forefront.
Nordonia football coach and teacher Jeff Fox says the news brings relief to his colleagues, but personally, he wrestles with some guilt about getting a shot.
Am I taking one of the finite number of doses away from someone that absolutely needs it at this time?
Not in the first round.
No idea.
Schools, but in a virtual meeting tonight, the district outlined its vaccination plan for employees. 2 centers where school nurses will administer shots.
You'll see a number of efforts for us as a
I muted it.
both sort through the facts and myths and also to hopefully build confidence in the vaccine.
Ohio schools must commit to returning kids to buildings at least partially by March 1st in order to get a vaccine, a condition that's angered teachers' unions.
Not you have to go back first and make a decision first and then get the vaccine. It should have been the other way around.
Because still unknown, how will the vaccine supply meet this new added demand? With few answers, there's real fear.
The unknown is just, it's very worrisome.
Hmm.
I think you might be muted there, Katie.
Me?
No, I thought I saw Katie speak and didn't hear any audio. You're fine. Let me know when you get it situated and I'll pull it back up. Yeah. Just kind of, it's I can get it back up. Yeah, they were talking about just the demands of it. Here, make sure I hear audio. All right, again, take 2. Hold on.
And tonight we have learned which schools in Northeast Ohio will be first on the list to get vaccinated so teachers and students can get back to class. Lena Lai explains.
These children are obviously our future.
Governor DeWine is moving forward with his goal of getting kids back in school by March 1st, announcing the first round of schools where teachers and staff can get COVID vaccines next week. Schools in 11 Ohio counties, with Cincinnati Public Schools going first.
Sorry about that, everyone. I don't know what was going on there. We seem to be having some technical issues with that video. It seems to be echoing, so we'll just go on and talk about it, so we're not interrupting the show.
So, kind of what the basic outline of what was discussed in the video is that they are giving certain schools a due date of March 1st for the return of the majority of students to in-class learning. So at the same time, the concern is not just the actual process of getting everybody vaccinated who is a teacher, school staffer, or anything like that to be able to meet this demand, but the actual availability of the vaccine to the counties that are doing this. So there's a absolute concern that a lot of teachers are going to go back to school in a full-time school environment without the vaccine.
Yeah.
Which,
and sorry, go ahead.
Josh. No, go ahead.
Because that's also an issue that we're facing in Canada too. A teacher already died in Canada, for instance. So we're already starting to have the repercussions of foolish, what you would call management of the vaccines already. In Canada, we are waiting for a 2-month period before we give the second dose of the vaccine. So, or maybe not Canada, I apologize. To be more specific, it's Quebec who's doing that.
Okay.
So we have our own foolery and stupidity happening in our area as well.
And that's just trying to push it through so that people are vaccinated faster. Instead of, they're probably taking the 2 doses closer than they should. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, because nobody knows what's going to happen if when you wait that long of a duration period from vaccines. Is it going to work? Is it going to become annulled after a while? Like, what's the situation?
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
nobody knows.
Yeah, exactly. And like I mentioned with my personal situation, we went through a month and a half for my school to get to that 3% positive rate before they sent kids home. So, if they're going to start piling kids cold, wet season where from our understanding of this COVID virus from last year, when it first hit, it thrives in cold weather. See, how many students we can pack in the building at the same time.
Right. I completely agree. And how about you, Kathy? What do you think about the situation?
I don't see the point of just throwing them all in there unless they're basing it on some type of statistics like what Skids was talking about with that 3% threshold. If they're above it, then they need to go out. I'm not sure by that video what they were basing this on, just the month. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it is a stressful situation to be teaching. I have subbed for teachers that have had COVID. I've subbed for teachers whose kids have had COVID. Ones whose kids got exposed at daycare. Just on, and I have been exposed at it at least twice at work. But the one thing that's good about there, when you're doing what you're supposed to and you're not in other public places unless you have to be there, At least I'm at a place where they will chase them down and they will notify you if you have been exposed to it. You know, where like if you're out in public areas, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You're absolutely right. And that's why with this virus, we have two options that we can do at the moment, because already it's been perpetuating for too long. So the first option is that we could sit back, let people do what they're going to do, and have this virus continue and continue and continue until the vaccine comes out full stock, in a sense, which looks highly unlikely at the moment.
Or it won't work because it's morphed so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's what so much?
Changed, you know,
Yeah,
it
mutated.
morphs, it mutates.
Oh, absolutely. I thought you said it costs more. That's why I
Oh
was like,
no.
well, yes. Oh, no, you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. It does morph a lot. But the thing is that the only reason why it's morphing is because it has the playing field in order to morph. That's the thing.
Right.
You take away the playing field, it is unable to morph anymore. So we
Exactly.
must act in order to slow down the processes or completely hinder the process completely. But the thing is that the governments need to understand that this half situation isn't going to work. That they need to go into either full 1 month just literally, in a sense, do like Australia did. 1 month of just Australian regulations. And I'm pretty sure that we would get out of it within a month.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, you know, we've discussed about a lot of the problems with, you know, the current situation of remote learning. We all want kids to go back to school, especially because we value education. We feel that this current push to get the kids back in the school is motivated by a desire to educate them, or do we feel that it's more motivated by just the fact that, you know, we still have this, especially in the United States, this we don't want to be a hindrance to the economy any longer, so let's just force everybody to get back to normal, whether we're ready for it or not.
I feel like it depends where you live.
That could be my area. It feels like more trying to just jump back to a feeling of normality, even though we're not quite to that stage yet.
Yeah, it seems like there's so many different plans out there. When you listen to the news coming from different states, it's like, what the heck? And that's the way it has been since the beginning for education. You know, and I'm in education groups, and it's stunning the extreme differences between districts and states.
Yeah, exactly.
Josh, we seem to have lost your video from StreamYard. I think you've dropped out.
Yeah, I know. My StreamYard video just kaput on me for a bit, so I'm going to try to fix that up. But at least, is my audio still?
Yes, we still got your audio.
We
That's
can
fine.
still hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to continue to try to fix this while speaking because I can hear you guys loud and clear.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's do this.
We do have, while he's doing that too, we do have one more video. It's a short one from about 2 minutes ago. We'll see if the echoing is.
Yeah, it wasn't doing it on the other
still
videos,
kind of an issue.
so I'm not sure whether it was just that video.
Let me get a moment and I will pull it up. All right. I'm going to, just in case, I'm going to make Sure, I'm all muted.
But the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association says right now the U.S. is seeing a 16% increase in kids getting COVID-19. 10 TV's Angela Reigert breaks down what parents need to know when your child goes back to the
Working
building.
fine now.
Look at the trends.
More than 2.5 million kids in the U.S. have tested positive for COVID-19 during this pandemic, but it's important to put that number into context. Dr. Dane Snyder from Nationwide Children's Hospital.
Unfortunately, children seem to be at lower risk of getting really sick.
And according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, school is not the place they're getting COVID-19.
It looks like that there isn't evidence of that, which is really fantastic news.
Of course, cleaning, masking, distancing, those are all key to keeping schools safe.
If they're getting ready to go back to school, talk to them about how it might be a little different.
What would some of those conversations look like, do you think?
Conversations that involve practice. So practicing wearing a mask, making sure that when kid goes back to school, it's not the first time.
It's also not a bad idea to have a plan for when your child gets home from school to keep things clean.
Make sure you wash your hands when you get home, change your clothes, and otherwise, let a kid be a kid.
And while no COVID-19 vaccines have been approved for children just yet, health leaders hope that will change by late spring, early summer.
The key message that I give parents is when it is available, that we are going to recommend it, because it not only helps a child, but it helps those they come into contact with who might be at higher risk.
Reporting in Columbus, Angela Reigert, 10 TV News.
Today, the governor's office released its full rollout of which school districts will get the vaccine for its staff over the next 4 weeks. We have links to that schedule on our website at 10tv.com.
This damn lag. It's watching YouTube. I mean,
No,
the
it's
end of the
it's
video.
huge. It's a really big lag.
Yeah, so that was that video.
No, back to the
Any
video.
thoughts?
The thing about that is you'd think that was a report from last September or something like that. Why are we still talking about COVID cases and kids going up?
I know.
Schools like in my area are half population in the classroom. They've had a year now to get their social distancing practices. Why is this still an issue?
You're absolutely right, but the thing is that people are confused in a sense. It's a weird thing to state, but a lot of people are confused based on the rules that the government has laid out so far. So because of this, people are now thinking that, okay, well, the government doesn't know what it's talking about, so I'm going to do what I need to do, or I'm going to go and do my own thing. So that's what I mean by the government needs to start being more authoritative in a sense, just for a month in order to slow this stuff down.
A lot of the schools have been doing it right that have been flipping to the different programs like hybrid and, with the rotating days and having a certain percentage online while having another certain percentage in school. When the numbers have been low, I mean, not in, high number areas. And anyway, it's been not that the people have been getting COVID-19 in school. That's not where they haven't been getting it in school. So it's not happening there really with those models.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. And but in the end, the only thing that I see that could be that silver lining is the cure itself, or is the vaccine itself. I shouldn't say cure, but the vaccine. But when we truly look at it, it does actually seem that we're lagging behind. That's what it is. We're
way
really
behind.
lagging behind, and that should not be how we are going to do things. We need to get ourselves, no, not ourselves, but the government needs to get itself organized and distribute the vaccine to at first the frontline workers, because they're the ones that are most at risk. So teachers, nurses, whatever else, individuals that are working on farms and so on and so forth. These individuals need to be the first to be vaccinated, and the old folks home, or the elderly home, I think they're called. But once we get out of that general area, then we can start vaccinating the actual people themselves. But we need to do this properly.
So you
That's the thing.
You mentioned, going to stricter guidelines to help combat the virus. What are you specifically referring to? Are you talking about shutting down like businesses again?
The thing is, in a sense, yes. So when we look at how Australia did it, people couldn't congregate more than, I believe it was 3, but I could be wrong. So people couldn't congregate with around 3 individuals and stuff like that. People, when they were finished work or wherever they were, they had to come back to their house or whatever. So you don't get me wrong, these regulations are strict. They're not laissez-faire type regulations. But at the same exact time, when we're dealing with a virus such as the virus that we have right now, we're going to have to look at the outcome of where we want to be and where we want to kind of finish the virus. If we're going to just continue on the track that we're going down now, we're not going to get anywhere that we're going to need to be, and then we're going to have more effects on the economy than anything. So if we really want to get our footing properly, we need to have stringent laws. We need to have things that, as I stated, maybe have courses, but have courses from, let's just say, and this would take a lot more, or this would be difficult for the teachers to do, don't get me wrong, but have it from morning till afternoon can be a specific group of kids, and then from afternoon till whatever, I wouldn't necessarily say night, but until like 5 or maybe 6 would be for the older kids to come in and do their work and to do their thing. So it's, in a sense, you're actually making the classrooms more sparse and the school in general less crowded. And these are the things that we need to really start putting forward, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I know nobody wants to hear, anything about more regulations like that. But the alternative is, like you said earlier, we just continue being within this pandemic, continue spinning our wheels and not ever seeming to get any closer to the end of it.
Yeah, and plus as well, look at how, like, over in the UK, for instance, how, colleges, have already done this, all of the time anyway, where they do split up different age groups. So over in the UK, for our colleges, we tend to have like 16 to 18-year-olds will do throughout the day, but then you'll have evening courses for older age groups, for adults and that, to go back to college. So so maybe the schools could actually take up a system like that, where, as Josh was stating, you have younger kids in the morning, you have the the middle school kids in the afternoon, and then have the the older kids in for like evening classes and things. Obviously, there would be logistics to work out on that, but you could utilize more times of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
That solves it. Are you talking about split classes? Why
Yeah,
Yes.
changing the
kind of.
time
Yeah.
of the day would matter? Split classes? They'd
That
have to
is
hire
correct.
a lot. They'd have to hire a lot more staff.
Mm.
That's what I meant though. Like it's going to be a draining on teachers to begin with
Mhm.
because these are not normal times that we're living. So it sucks to say, but we're going to have to do things that make certain individuals or certain jobs, let's just say, less. How could I say it? It is going to be more stressful. That's the thing. But the thing is that if we keep going the way that we're going at, I have a feeling that the repercussions are going to be more dire than actually putting these regulations in at the moment. So
Um,
that's my thing. Is that take either a month of stress, but then get out of this coronavirus kind of scot free, whatever that means, or continue to perpetuate what we're doing now, and then the economy is going to get hit. How do we? If the economy gets hit, then we're going to have a recession. If it continues, remember, like already the government is paying astronomical amount of money for, or at least the Canadian government is paying astronomical amount of money for their citizens. And not only for citizens, but for small businesses, and not only for small businesses, but for large businesses as well. And it can't continue to perpetuate that. So that's what I mean, that we need to have a specific time of what we can call quote unquote job stress in order to get back to normal quicker.
And as far as like the shortage of teachers, obviously that is a big issue. And if you're going to open up the times of the schools to be open longer to be able to accommodate all of these new changes, you're obviously going to need to get more teachers. Because you can't have teachers working like 24 hours a day, obviously. But isn't there a way that you could utilize people who aren't working in the teaching industry right now, i.e., those who are going through college courses to become teachers? They might not be fully trained yet, but they have been studying to be teachers. Maybe there's a way that the government could pay them to, to use their time to give to the teaching industry, which would also be giving them experience as well in the long run.
They'd have no idea what they were doing unless they went through student teaching.
Well, that's what I mean. Those who are training to be
it is a difficult
teachers.
matter
There's a
to look
shortage
at.
and there's not enough money to do that stuff. There just isn't. I mean, it's busing and everything else. And you have to be able to find people that are going to drive the bus,
We here, especially in the States, don't take the best care of the teachers we have now, is the thing. Our teachers, before any of this ever happened, are already overworked and underpaid, regardless of this situation. It's definitely exasperate. It's grown a lot more because of the pandemic, not only because the shortage of teachers, but if somebody gets sick, having to come up with multiple, teaching in class, teaching online, all this stuff. So we've already taken a stressful situation for a group of educators who don't make the most amount of money and we've put it into a situation where it's even worse. Now, I would almost imagine that there's probably people who would have loved to go into the field of teaching that it's like, you know what? I would almost rather do anything else than put up with that stress.
It's
my
obviously
opinion,
a lot
you
of
know.
issues to solve.
It is.
And I think
You
Josh
know,
does have a point with what he's saying, that no matter what you do, things are going to be hard. So maybe going through a month or two of heavy stress, and and just accepting the stress is probably the best course of action to get out of it the quickest way possible.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I mean, if we had an idea of exactly when we could expect a more widespread distribution of the vaccine, that would probably allow us to plan for a stressful event like that, where it's like, okay, by this date, we know everybody's going to be vaccinated, where we can make this a lot safer for everybody. But right now, we don't even have that.
I think we've lost Josh's video again, but I think we can still hear him. So
He's in Discord. We can hear.
Yeah. Yeah. So have we got any more videos to play, or are we at the end of the?
No, we that was the videos we have to play. I know that had given us some links to some videos she would like to share with parents.
Yeah, we can put them in the chat.
I'm going to put those in the chat real quick for everybody. Kat, would you kind of describe what these videos are about?
Okay, it's a video made by somebody in the United States. I can't remember exactly who it was, but this is a video where they're having the kids ask questions about the COVID-19 and the vaccination. And so it's a good one to go over with your kids, especially if you have elementary kids, because it's questions that get asked to me all the time.
I'm sorry, I'm running just a touch late, getting them copied, and there we go. I'm posting them into the chat right now for everybody.
Yeah, we'll also put those videos in the description. At the moment, we haven't got a description because this was a bit of a rush tonight to get this stream up, but we'll fill all that in afterwards and make sure the links are there.
Yeah, it's really rather nice because the kids are asking questions and then they're getting answers. So it's great for kids.
Have we got you back in
Here we
Discord
go.
now, Josh? You popped out and popped back in. Can we hear you?
I actually do not see him in here.
He's popped back out again, has he?
Lost internet.
Oh yeah, he's popped back out again. I think his computer might have fried on us.
Oh no.
It sometimes does this, where his internet drops out and right. So what are we what are we talking about now? Because my brain's starting to fry a bit, but
Not a problem. I'm just posting the last video right
Yeah.
now. Okay, so I am back. So yeah, these videos are great for parents, like Kat was saying. Basically, that they kind of are something that you could watch with your kids and kind of help explain exactly what the virus is and how for them to be safe. Which, again, this is kind of exactly what we need to help us get past this situation, to help them understand what it takes for them to be safe. That way they're a little more conscious on not spreading the virus themselves, to keep themselves safe from others and everything like that. This can help us get back to a sense of normal, and definitely helps them feel like, okay, there is a point to what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and the kids want to know what's going on. They just hear people talking and they don't, always get a lot of their questions answered.
It's one of those things that that if you don't understand exactly what's going on, it can be terrifying. And when it comes to education, it's definitely a distraction with all this going on. So, it's one thing we haven't talked about so much. We've talked about the difficulties of learning remotely, of, putting up with the lack of teachers and everything like that. Just the general distraction of being in this pandemic and the kids' worries and fears about what's going to happen to them or what's going to happen to a loved one and stuff like that. This is a good way to at least get started, but it's also good for the parents just to kind of talk to them about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely, because it might bring up more questions that your kids have too.
Absolutely. And if they're not quite as scared about going to school, and that's a big thing, some kids are literally terrified of it. So it's, if you can convince them that it is safe, you just have to be safe. You have to conduct yourself in a safe manner. Then it's definitely reassuring to them, and then we can keep that fire for learning within the kids going. Because if they don't want to go to school, even if you force them, learning is not going to be the main thing on their mind.
Yeah, and I tell you, the last thing we're going to want to do is have huge outbreaks in the schools, and then suddenly all the teachers are sick and they can't even get enough subs, to even teach them online. If everybody had to be quarantined and go home.
Exactly. At least as we're coming kind of through this winter and the cold weather and all that, we are going to get to a point where school year is going to end, and hopefully that's going to allow time to get the vaccines caught up and kind of get hopefully to an end of this quarantine and pandemic, where we can get back to some sense of normal. And then we keep saying that, but whether it's ever going to get back to that point, because things are going to change no matter what from now on.
And this is a further issue
it's
as
sad
well,
that
isn't
Go ahead.
No, and this is a further issue as well, what you've just touched on there is, everyone keeps talking about, I know this is a bit of a tangent, but everyone keeps talking about getting back to the normal. But I think what we need to be asking ourselves is, should we be thinking about getting back to normal? Should we be thinking about
exactly.
Because there is advantages to this new normal. Because what this pandemic has shown us is that in a lot of areas we were very well ill-equipped. We were not ready at all for any of this crap to happen. And it's shown the weaknesses of our societies.
Absolutely.
As far as wearing, keeping with hygiene better, keeping with washing your hands and things like that, wearing masks, things like that. I think this new normal is going to be the normal. And I think it should be viewed as the normal, because this is how we stop another pandemic from raging through our society. And as far as schooling goes, as we've discussed, we have found a lot of inadequacies with the schooling system through this pandemic.
Yes.
So we shouldn't be thinking about getting back to the normal. We should be thinking about how to make the new normal work.
Keep hygiene in a very prominent space inside schools. Don't cram kids in so closely into classrooms. Don't jam 30 kids into a small room. Make it available for kids that are sick, because even if you're talking about just regular cold and flu, it's difficult for kids to keep up with their work and everything like that, and be able to stay at home. A lot of parents have this. Well, unless you are literally throwing up, you have to go to school because you can't get behind. Make it so that if your kid is feeling ill, that remote learning is an option where they can say, guess what? You can stay home. You still have to go to school, but at least you can do it remotely for a couple days. And then when you're feeling better, you can go back to school. That way kids don't get behind if they get sick.
And I think
there's a lot of things, like you said, that are great examples of how we can take what happened and learn from it.
Exactly. And I think as well we've got to start, assessing, the different types of schooling. So this, that not all kids will need to go into school. Some kids, and I think this is where we need to, work out a testing system to work out which kids are able to work at home on a remote system more, because there is some children which are going to be a lot easier and a lot easier for them and a lot easier for the teaching staff and the schooling system for those kids to be taught at home constantly, because there is different styles of learning, and some kids do learn in a way which is very accessible for a remote system. So if you have those working at home a lot more, obviously if the family, the home scenario is accessible to that, then that frees up more space in school for children with special needs and things like that to be able to have a safer environment with, not being packed in all the time.
Right. Yeah. There are kids that thrive learning from home. That is absolutely true. So if a child actually thrives in that situation, let's provide them that situation where they can thrive.
Right, and then have the kids that are failing and not doing well online come in and go to school. Make a hybrid that way.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And then you're playing to the children's strengths and the children's weaknesses, and you're able to provide a much better system, because anyone who's ever been to school will know that there are certain kids in the class that are just streaks ahead of all the other children in that class. Now, they don't need to be in school constantly. They obviously have an aptitude for learning, and they will learn whether they're at home or not. But the problem is, in that situation for that child, is that they're always being held back to the rest of the class.
Right.
So they're not able to pursue the knowledge that they're after at the pace that they're after. And then on the other end, with kids who aren't learning as quick, they're not being given enough attention that they need to be able to develop their learning skills, because they're trying to be pushed forward a bit to try and hit this middle ground. So at the moment, it doesn't seem to be working very well for any of the children.
Well, we do have programs here where kids can go at their own pace in math and reading and language. It's just built in.
Yeah, and it's not a one size fits all situation, because there are kids that are going to thrive at math and science, but may struggle in other categories. So just because they're very successful in one area doesn't mean they're going to be successful in all areas.
Yeah. So, especially when they're not interested in it.
Yeah, exactly.
That is not a good motivator.
I think that's where we also need to change our education system, and not just in America, but in the UK and Europe and other countries as well. Is we need to start following models such as the model in Finland and Sweden, where you have a much more tailored education, where the child is able to choose, is able to choose subjects and tailor the education to their interests, to their strengths, and
yes,
so that there's a much so they're not being bogged down with all of the subjects that they just have absolutely no interest in. Now, obviously, by that I'm not meaning they don't like maths, so they should be able to not do maths. There would be certain STEM subjects that would be necessary. But then, not every child is going to like, doing, home ed or doing art or doing religious studies. So, there would be a certain amount of subjects that a child would be able to go, well, I have absolutely no interest in that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not where I'm going to be working. That's not going to affect my life when I'm older at all. So I don't need that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have we got Josh back?
Sounds like somebody's rustling around back there.
Is he eating?
Of course.
I thought so.
Yeah, no, we were just moving on to how we were talking about how we go about, making a new normal. So we were talking about how everyone keeps talking about going back to the normal again at the end of this pandemic. And I made the point that maybe we shouldn't be thinking about going back to the normal, because the normal wasn't working. The normal is why we're in the situation that we're in right now. We need to develop a new normal.
I completely agree with you. I think the normal, in a sense, needs to be, just like how you stated, revamped. It needs to be changed so that, because this is not going to be the only virus that we're going to run into. That's the truth in the matter. There's going to be more down the road, and definitely when we start seeing with global warming and everything like that, what we're going to see is more and more pandemics and more viruses being released into the system. So we need to be proactive, not reactive. And the old system was just being based on reaction. And we saw how well that did us. So we need to be proactive. We need to start creating, as many times I stated before, hospitals that are on the outskirts and stuff like that, meant for pandemics, and not just meant for pandemics, but when there is none, turn them into virology hospitals, in a sense, in order to look and study and see the new strains of viruses that are going to pop out all around the world, in a sense, so that we can be more ready, or we can be ready for the next time another strain of whatever the hell comes down the pipeline. It will come, and we can be more prepared than just being left in the dark like we were in this pandemic. So that's what I think. I think that we definitely need to change things in order to benefit not just ourselves, but society as a whole when it comes to pandemics and pandemic prevention.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't just go for schooling and education. That goes for all areas of life. There's many areas of life that we need to revamp in our societies. I mean, wearing masks, washing your hands, as I already mentioned. These are two, very basic things that I think we need to incorporate into our society as a whole, because, not only do they stop coronaviruses and other major pandemics from happening, that or help you through those pandemics. They also cut down on the seasonal flu and the common cold, which are things which affect us every single year, and they affect millions upon millions of people. We also need to think about how we're overcrowding as well. So, within public transport is a big issue in my mind. We're always just cramming loads of people into very small spaces. Now that is just a breeding ground for in Pacific's viruses.
Right.
And
absolutely.
We definitely need to think about how we're doing that.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry, I was finished.
Oh no! I interrupted you. I apologize. When we look at viruses as a whole, and when we look at just society, as you stated, as a whole, we really need to be not careful, but we have to, as you stated, we're cramming too many people within a small space, and that obviously is not just for pandemics, but just for anything that comes down the pipeline, and let alone how much people are you going to fit within whatever your public transport when your population keeps growing, right? So these are the type of aspects that we got to think about. We got to think about how do we provide proper transport for a public, or for public peoples, that is not detrimental to the health of those individuals.
Well, I've given some thought to this over a couple of years back. I gave some thought to this, and I was looking into different technologies that are coming out now, which would be easily accessible, and you could revamp your entire transport system, because it's not just public transport that's a problem. It's also, the amount of cars on our road, the amount of pollution that those cars are then putting out, which is then detriment to people's health and the health of the environment, which will also be contributing to these to the health incidents that we're having, such as in the last year. And one thing one idea that struck me as a really good idea would be to incorporate two technologies, one being for long distance travel and one being for short inner city travel. So instead of having people drive from one city to the next when they want to get up and down the country, you would have private airfields at the edge of every city, multiple of these little private airfields, and then have electric planes, so electric self-flying planes.
Okay.
Which would be like a taxi service. So you would go to this airport, you would then get into one of these planes, program the destination, and it would take you to the next city or to whatever city you wanted to go to. And then at that city, you would have, thousands or hundreds of thousands, or what, depending on the size of the city and the amount of people that are, populating it. You would have electric vehicles, so personalized electric vehicles, i.e., electric bikes, electric scooters, electric chairs. But not electric chairs as in the electric wheelchairs and things.
Means something totally different here in the United States.
So you would have these like personalized electric vehicles, PLEVs, and everyone would be able to hire one of them out, or you'd own your own, whatever, and then that's what you would use to get around the city. So there's no cars in the city, there's no cars on the highways. So we'd get rid of cars, so everyone having their own personal cars, and it would all be electric vehicles. And I think that would be a way to revamp society's transport issues.
Interesting. Kat, you were about to say something. What were you about to say?
Well, I was just wondering if you meant then that people that live out in the country would obviously have electric cars.
Yes, so I'm talking about city to city, obviously. There, you would, but that's where a lot of the traffic problems is in the inner city and the highways, getting from city to city. So you would go to electric out in the country. If you instead, because we'd be like with this idea, you're wanting to push away from petrol and diesel vehicles that are polluting the air. So yes, in the countryside, you would obviously have vehicles, electric vehicles made specifically for the countryside.
Well, we have definite plans here to try to get things all electric as far as cars go.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to move forward a little bit more now that we do have a different president. It seemed like some of those plans had stagnated a little bit with our previous president. So it'd be nice to see how we could combine the idea of an electric vehicle with kind of the future being a self-driving vehicle. How that can improve travel from in between cities and shipping of products across the country and stuff like that. There's a lot of potential there to take advantage of both of those and integrate them into a way to not only use clean air vehicles, but still keep the productivity of moving goods across the country up and actually increase it.
Yeah, well, goods deliveries and things like that, you can utilize a train network. So, obviously you need to build new rails and things like that. But maglev trains would be a very cost-effective way to, an environmental way to move goods from one end of a country to another. By taking the friction out of the scenario.
We have a pretty good train network when it comes to the major cities, because the United States is kind of a vast, not kind of, it is a vast expanse of land. Once you get to a major city, you still have to get those goods out to all the warehouses and stuff like that to the small towns, and that's kind of where the train networks might not have the best reach. So
yes.
usually we have a big a semi tractor trailer type business here in the States, where that is our major means of transporting goods across the country.
So right now we've got a massive, we've got a lot more, there's a lot more traffic than just the trucks. So I mean, even if you were, you utilize the train network, maglev trains and that to get from city to city, and then you just move them around using trucks like we do today to get to the smaller places. If all of the cars were pretty much off the road and people were moving from city to city by using this air taxi service, and then using personalised electric vehicles to move about the city, then you've got a lot of spare road now that you don't need anymore. So the trucks can still use the road networks that we've already built up.
And requires a lot less maintenance and a lot safer, because you don't have giant trucks versus tiny vehicles going on.
Exactly. So it would be a lot safer system, and because it's a lot safer system, the trucks in theory as well could move at faster speeds, so move the stuff quicker as well, which is then more cost effective. I'm not sure when we're wanting to shut this stream down, because we've been going for about 2 hours 15 minutes now, so we're wanting to wrap it up in the next 10 minutes or so?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Absolutely.
I'm still not getting how this train thing would work because it's not like you'd have a car at every city that you would go to.
Well, the thing is that what you would probably do is do like Japan did. So you connect every major city or every major hub to your quote unquote maglev train, for instance, so that when people want to go to one major hub to another for whatever purpose or particular reason, they can get there in a faster amount of time and they can work, let's just say, and actually it can help out certain areas in general if they have, I don't know, unemployment, let's just say, in a certain area, but in another area, they have more employment. Well, not more employment, but I mean, there's not that many jobs left within that particular whatever city or hub because most of the young individuals have jobs there, let's just say. Well, individuals from that city can go to the other city and help out the economy of that other hub or whatever through maglev technologies and stuff like that. So it's definitely an interesting concept to look at when we're talking about faster time reaching to another place. If you want to, let's just say, check out how, I don't know, another state is, or maybe another place that you've never been, or whatever. And I'm not talking about some place across the sea, across the ocean. I'm just talking about just some place you haven't been within either your state or a state that's next to your state, but it either takes too much time to get there, so you don't travel there for that long, or you haven't been there for quite some time. Maglev technology could probably get you there within 30 minutes if it's an hour away, or if it's 2 hours away, it'll cut it down to an hour. So I mean, it's incredible. The fast rails, the VIA rails, and let alone the maglev technologies that Japan is working on right now. So I don't think that I answered Kat's question though.
So you know
Going on
the maglev trains would just be for cargo, so that would be moving cargo from one place to another. The passengers wanting to get from city to city would utilise the air transport, air taxi service with self-flying planes, self-flying helicopters, whatever. Yeah, because I think it's China have developed the first self-piloting air transport system, air taxi service. So you would utilize something like that, which then keeps, which interests me quite a lot because of the pandemic that that we're experiencing now. So one of the big problems of the pandemic is people mixing with each other in travel. So when you're traveling from one place to another, you're mixing in too close a quarter with other people. These self-flying taxis would be for one or two people. You might have up to some of them that would take up to like four or five people, like a car. But then it's like just families traveling with each other from place to place. So you've got your own air supply, you've got your own thing. You're not mixing with, 50 odd different families on your journey. And then once you're in the city, you've got then personalised electric vehicles, which tend to be more open air vehicles like scooters and bikes and things like that, which you then use to travel around at 15 to 20 miles per hour, as your speed limit sort of thing for those electric vehicles. But because they're personalised electric vehicles, you're not mixing with other people. You're in an open air situation, travelling at very safe speeds. Which frees up a lot of road, because these electric vehicles can then use a much smaller road network. So you'd be able to basically half the road network that we've got now and have one half of the road network for personalised electric vehicles and the other half of the road network for trucks and things like that, larger vehicles that are transporting goods.
I mean, I see what you mean, and I mean that is a particularly valuable goal to want to reach. But at the same, what I see is that we will need to have the money in order to do that. Like every sort of aspect or whatever needs to have money and needs to have clients in a sense.
Right.
Now, if people are too afraid of flight, let's just say, because I know tons of people who are terrified of flying, and we're
Same
talking
here.
about it exactly. And we're talking about the huge commercial airplanes. Now, if you're talking about small self-driving airplane, not airplanes, but some sort of helicopter-esque, let's just say, type of self-driving or self-propelled vehicle, then I can definitely see a lot of individuals too not wanting to do it because already within that huge tube which we utilize to get from point A to point B in each and everyday society, people are terrified of those. So
And why are they terrified? What's the biggest reason? I mean, I can understand...
Because of the fear of heights.
Yeah, I can understand that. So you don't...
Fear of lack of control would be a
That's
big one.
true.
Yeah, that's
Good.
a good one as well. But what's the biggest? What's really the biggest fear? The biggest fear is you're in the air. You've got those heights. What's the fear of height really of? It's a fear of falling.
Crash.
Yeah. So
It is a fear of falling.
these air vehicles that have been designed now are being designed in a way because they're smaller. They're not these big, massive, jumbo jets. Yeah. If a jumbo jet loses thrust, it just falls out the sky like a brick. Yeah. There's not a lot you can do
Right.
there. So it's all on the thrust. With these smaller vehicles, because of the size of them and because of the way that they've been designed, that when they lose power, there's a catastrophic failure, they just glide to Earth. That's how they've been designed. It's a very safe system in which you cannot crash in them. They will not crash. The shape and everything of them and the way they're being aerodynamically designed is they will just slowly glide to Earth and glide to a stop on the ground. And they're very safe. They're very, very much like a parachute. They don't need built-in parachutes or anything like that because they are basically, they fall like a parachute anyway.
Mhm.
So it would be getting
Makes
the
sense.
knowledge out there to people that and getting the system up and running to a point where people do see these all around all the time, and then the knowledge out there that doing test crashes and things like that to show people, well, these things, look, it doesn't matter how bad the system's failure is, these things will just glide to the ground, and you've got 100% survival.
It's like it gets really windy here, and we have a lot of birds.
Mm.
I mean, that'd be my concern.
Yeah, well, the way that these are designed is they're not even harmful to the wildlife. So you wouldn't because the way that they're designed is they're designed on the so they are propeller flight, but they're designed on the four propellers, horizontal propellers, on either side of the on all four corners of the vehicle.
Much like mini drones.
Yes, they are drones. They fly the that's exactly what they are. They are drone taxis basically. So they don't suck in any like wildlife or that much air or anything. from the like the front or the back. So there's very, very low likelihood that they'll affect the wildlife.
Sounds really interesting.
Interesting points.
I think it'd be rather fun, actually. So I hit the first bird.
Yeah.
Do you have many birds where you live, Borg?
Oh yes, just outside my house is literally like 10, 15,000 of them. Flying around all the time. Gets very noisy on a morning.
Here it's not definitely a question of quantity. We have large birds. We've got like large geese and cranes and things like that. Can actually do some damage.
Yeah, well, you've got to think about the speed of these flying vehicles as well. They're not flying all that fast. It's not like big jumbo jets where
Exactly. They're going, hundreds of miles an hour.
So to a big bird, they're going to look at this smaller aeroplane or smaller drone. They're going to look at it and just view it as another big bird. And obviously you haven't got a pilot in it. You've got a AI system pilot in it, so you can obviously program into the AI system and using a series of sensors on the outside of the thing to always know when there is like a flock of geese or something like that that's flying at the same altitude as yourself. And obviously an AI system can think a hell of a lot quicker than a human pilot to make a course correction to keep out the way of those geese.
But geese are dumb. They just fly into things.
I know. I'm just thinking about this, and I'm just thinking about how much wildlife I've had to dodge out here.
And I mean, maybe not everyone will obviously still want to, go around flying from place to place. But if
I
a
don't think
majority
this is
of people
the
can
end
do
all
that,
be all, but
yeah,
I can see people raising concerns.
yeah. But as long as the majority of people do that, then you can still have electric public transport systems, i.e., in the maglev trains, i.e., in electric buses and trams and things like that. But they will be a lot less crowded because the majority of people would be taking the flying option.
These are the same type of conversations that people had the first time somebody came up with the idea for an automobile or for the first airplanes, the first commercial airplanes, I mean, or anything like that. There's always somebody who's going to resist the idea. So
exactly. But as you see, when with the automobile and with the aeroplane, it's just getting the knowledge there that of what the advantages of this new transport system is going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And people
and
soon forget
it's
about
not the inventor. Sometimes it's not the inventor of the technology that comes up with how it can be used in a very practical manner.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think one of the biggest advantages to this is if you had the majority of people using electric vehicles. Just think about back in when the pandemic first hit, and for those first few weeks, there was no air travel. Think about how clear the skies were, how much more breathable the air was, how much happier people were because that air was more breathable. And I think that will be a very big selling point to get people on board with this new transport system, is how much more like paradise society becomes because of the major changes. And, think about pollution as well. I mean, how much of our negative society is down to the negativity within our society is down to the pollution that we're constantly breathing in. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's already known that if you go out and stay out in the country, if you live in the city and you go and stay out in the country for 2 weeks, how much happier you are just for those 2 weeks. And a lot of that is down to you're not breathing in those chemicals anymore.
Air is much better. No, I'm totally looking forward to electric cars.
It's the way that things need to go. I mean, quite interestingly, in the area that I'm living in now, they're actually testing out the personalised electric vehicles. They've passed it through, not passed it through law yet, but where the testing area for to see how it goes with everyone driving around on them. Obviously, it's been in the middle of the pandemic. I haven't seen too many people doing it, but I actually own an electric scooter, which is absolutely amazing for getting around on.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fun.
Oh, it is. It's really fun. It's just hard because at the moment you've got, when you're on an electric scooter and you're having to drive along the road, and you've got you're traveling like 15 to 20 miles per hour, and you've got all these big massive cars and SUVs and juggernaut fucking trucks coming past you, flying past you at 60 miles per hour, and you're on a little tiny scooter. It's terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
I can imagine.
But obviously, the advantages of it are really good. It's just that people need to stop thinking in this the way that we do within our societies, that the only way to get around is by buying a car, driving a car, and getting around in a car.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, anyway, we've come up to 2.5 hours now, so I think it's time to shut the stream down now.
Sounds good. I think we did get a little distracted, but it's a good place to end on.
Yeah, it's talking about a better future for us all. That's what
exactly.
That's what we're all about here at the Promethean Movement. Coming up with these ideas on how to live in a much nicer and easier, safer, more environmentally friendly future. So join us again next week at 8:30 Eastern Time. We're here every Thursday. If you want to join the movement, it's completely free to join. The only thing that we ask is that you come along and, if you can, give some of your ideas and some of your thoughts to us, so that we can help develop the movement a little bit further. I also run a YouTube channel myself, Borg Skeptic channel. If you want to come along and join me on talking about ex-Jehovah's Witness topics and ex-religion, and from an atheist perspective, talking about the religious aspects of the world, then come along and join me in there. I run that at 8 PM Eastern Time on Monday and Fridays. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and we'll catch you again next week. Good night.
as a pauper. We all get old, we all slow down as the walls they close. We fall, we drown, and I need some breathing space. I won't grow old with grace. I need some breathing space. I can't keep living straight. Oh, we ain't gonna linger and wallow when there's hard cash coming back. No way, I'll just sit here when I know that there's hard cash coming back. Hard cash. Don't want no easy money. Oh no. Money couldn't buy me happiness, just a prettier misery. There's a price to pay for a life of luxury. The air is thin, the glare, the smoke and the wear within. It tears, it's choking. I need some breathing space. I won't grow old with grace. I need some breathing space. I can't keep living straight. Oh, we ain't gonna linger and wallow when there's hard cash coming back. No way, I'll just sit here when I know that there's hard cash coming back. Hard cash. Gonna linger and wallow when there's hard cash coming back. We ain't gonna linger and wallow when there's hard cash coming back. No way, I'll just sit here when I know that there's hard cash coming back. Hard cash. Don't want no easy money. Oh no. And now that we have all arrived, my friends, get in your cars and drive. And now that we have all arrived, my friends, get in your cars and drive. Gonna drive our blues away. Just another sunny day. Gonna drive our blues away. Just another sunny day. Throughout the crooked kingdoms, I watch the weather change. The clouds collide on either side as nations rearrange. A silver mane adorns me, my steel is fluid and fast. They shun my ways, avoid my gaze, a fugitive outcast. There is no pain I can feel. True retribution I deal through silver and steel. Silver and steel. Deadly dark elixirs, caustic curdled sour. Wound and we way when the Witcher comes. Pueblo está. I bear no love for counts or kings or nobles' taunts and tricks. I have no will to share their thrill for tiresome politics. I hunt my wayward memories for pieces of the past. As fragments fade, I clutch my blade and visit visions vast. There is no pain I can feel. Through retribution I deal, through silver and steel. Woo! Silver